So, for those of you that don't know us, Financial Basics Foundation is a national charity. We've been around for a little bit over 20 years, and we create and provide resources free for educators, parents, young people. And we do that by working with partners who sponsor and fund what we do. I'm front ending with all of that just because teachers, if you're brand new to us and your first exposure to us is that there's this thing called the Easy Money game, and there's a new workbook that's just launched for the game. Um, there's a whole lot of stuff on our website at financialbasics.org.au that you can actually look at inside the Educator Hub when you make a free account. And you can also see in the About section where you can look at our privacy policy, our terms and conditions. And there's also a whole range of different resources you can find in here, including technical support, and also where you can look up answers to questions that are commonly asked of us by educational departments and their cybersecurity teams, including on a yearly basis, the updates I do with the Safer Technologies for Schools teams, which oversees a lot of government schools. So just letting you know that that is there. That's not the focus of our session today, but it would be remiss of me just in case there was someone who maybe hadn't seen the game and is looking to learn a little bit about the game and a lot about the workbook today in 30 minutes, not to have at least mentioned that that is there. So just in case you haven't seen the game itself, Easy Money is an education simulation built off version 9 of the Australian curriculum. Previous to that, it was built off version 8.4 of the Australian curriculum. And before that, in its previous iteration, it was done from versions of the National Financial Literacy Strategy, as well as different states and territories' curriculums that we kind of passed through to look for commonalities and build a game that gamified that curriculum and gave teachers a resource they can use with students that they would engage with without actually knowing that they're learning a lot of the time. So having used the game itself, showing my age, for over 15 years in the classroom before I came into this role, it's a resource that I can speak really comfortably with. And as is the workbook, which is one of my passion projects when I started with FBF, was that when the game went from version 1 to version 2, the workbook never came with it, and the workbook was one of my favorite resources to use with students and deepen and engage their understanding of the elements they learnt about in the simulated environment of the game. Just as a 2-minute peek for those who might not be familiar with the game itself, you create the game in your educator account. There's a whole little menu about it that you can go into to register a class, view your classes. There's even a little instructional guide if you want the short version of how to use the resource. And there's also a detailed breakdown, both as a teacher guide written on our website and frequently asked questions on our website, as well as an intro, a teacher guide, and a learner guide sitting on YouTube as well. Again, I know that's not the focus of our session, but I know that there will be people who are in here who are either new to the game or watching this recording who are new to the game and are kind of getting an info dump of the game itself as well as the workbook. And without a context of the game, the workbook is not going to be as valuable a resource to you. So the basic workflow is you as a teacher create a free account on our website. You go down into the Easy Money. Oh, I went too fast. The Easy Money submenu. You register your class. That'll kick you down to here. You put in your class details, you select all the relevant information, you choose your version of the game, and then you add your class, and then it'll appear down the bottom here. The way the game works, you give the game link to the students. You can also play yourself as a teacher. There's a guide in the YouTube video that tells you how to play with your class as a teacher, and I'd recommend that as a really fun 2 hours of PD that you can claim back by printing a certificate at the end of it. It gives you your teacher dashboard. It gives you a downloadable report on your class's gameplay for each class you play it with, and it also gives you the ability to reset all your student passwords, because inevitably they're going to forget their password when they're playing the game. And some of you are probably already thinking of the students in your class who either have forgotten their password or who are chronic offenders when it comes to forgetting passwords and logins. So once you've done all of those things, the way it works for the students for the game itself is it's a really simplistic account that they create. So they go to the link, they either log in if they've already got an account, or they create an account if they're brand new. They put in the basic amount of info we need for them to go and play the game and to make sure they're a school student, including year of birth only, not date of birth. I've already got several accounts, so I'm not going to go through all of this again. And I'm going to then go log into my account and play the game. So once they've got the account, they can log in. When they log in, they've got for each game link that you give them, they've got up to 5 games they can play. Think of it as 5 lives, 5 playthroughs of the game. They take 2 or 3 hours each on average for kids to get through. They can come in and out of those games whenever they like. And you'll often find that kids will have multiple games on the go because they'll get frustrated, especially when you start showing them a leaderboard that they haven't quite made the optimal decisions, the best financial decisions in the game. They might be lagging behind some of their peers and they want to start another one to make better decisions. And we like that because the way the game's designed is for that stickiness and the replayability. What we see is substantial differences week on week up to the 5 games and even beyond. The maximum we get is generally kids playing 7 or 8 times. There's some outliers who play a lot more when teachers give them multiple links to play on. But across those 5 playthroughs, there's a significant difference in the amount of money they earn, which is the marker of what they're learning and then implementing those financial decisions. I know this is very much the game in a nutshell, so I won't go any deeper than that on the gameplay itself at this point. So they choose the game. They could do a brand new one. They could do an existing one. I'm going to do an existing one that's just started off, and I'm pretty sure I've already got that loaded. And they'll have their little game guide that'll talk them through how to play the game. There's a whole range of little helpful hints and tips in the teacher guides that I'll let you explore because I would take up this whole session if I just talked about the Easy Money game. But in terms of for context, as the students play through, it's an app-centric simulation. It doesn't go out and connect to the real world. In terms of the differences between the 2 versions of the game, and this bit is important because it does directly connect to the workbooks. When you're doing your teacher side of things and you're choosing which version of the game to do with your class, think of it as like an easy and a hard version, or a standard and a plus, which is how we refer to it internally. Easy Money is where the game started, and it's like a baseline version of the game that is really popular, especially with like grade 7s to 9. It doesn't have the more complex decisions that we have added in with Plus. It doesn't have quite as many tricky scams or problems that arise that your students have to navigate. It doesn't give them the ability to do a really basic share trading and brokerage. And they don't have quite as many options with buying and selling and shopping around. So it sort of is like the easy mode. And then the plus version digs into the concepts a little bit more deeply. It looks the same. So what you're actually looking at is the plus version of the game, but it has different products in here for students to choose from. It has a little bit more of investigation that they need to do to get the best choice for them. And it lends itself into more higher order thinking and critical thinking when we actually move from the game into the workbook, which is the focal point of our session today. But the basic flow of the game is essentially the students work through each of these apps for each of the weeks. Sometimes they go back and forth between them because they think about things and they go back. So they might be tossing up which job do they apply for. What's the what are they trying to get to? Especially when they're in their 2nd or 3rd playthrough, they get really thoughtful about in my 26 weeks of the simulation, how do I get the clearest career pathway to the job I want to achieve? How do I learn from the mistakes I made last time around and the jobs that I chose? Or maybe taking weekends off versus do they want to work a weekend job? Like there's all these sorts of decisions they need to make. And in the little diary reflection, which is also connected to the workbooks that I'm about a minute from moving over to, for those of you who are familiar with the game, just bear with me for like 1 more minute while we talk about the game itself. Then we'll move into the workbooks. And in each of the game weeks, there's these little reflective questions that were one of my favorite resources as a teacher, because I would actually collate all of these from my students and I'd make it form part of either a formative or summative assessment, depending on what I could work around the curriculum at the time with the unit that we were doing that I integrated Easy Money into. And it's also a big part of why I was working so hard to get the workbook up and running, because the workbook formed part of my assessment as well, especially some of those higher order thinking and investigative questions that I'm going to show you that build on that reflection from what they've done in the gameplay. What I found anecdotally as a teacher was the students who really engaged with the workbook I'm about to show you, not just the improvements they got from the game, playing week after week, and sort of what they've thought about and learned and reflected on internally as a game player, the workbook actually gets them to really structure their thoughts. And I saw the bumps in my classes and the bumps in their net position on where they finished make significant leaps when they were working through it with the workbook. So that's the basic structure of the game. I know it's a very light look at it for those of you who haven't seen the game before, but our focus here is around the workbook. So where you find the workbook, I've done this just as a quick, easy reference for today while we're running the webinar, where I've pulled the links out for the workbook and the Easy Money promotional resources if you're looking for some stuff that you can print out and use around your school or around your classroom. Where these normally sit and where they will after the session, just to save you digging around for them, they sit in your Easy Money little section, and then there's a section for Easy Money portal, and all the core Easy Money resources sit in there. And then there's an Easy Money help desk that has a range of information and guides as well. But this is where you will actually find them. But if you're looking around today, you've got a really quick access shortcut. It messes with our menu structure, so I'm not allowed to leave it there forever. And I saw the question in chat about Easy Money and Easy Money Plus. Give me 2 seconds to finish this little section here, and I'll answer the question about the 2 links, because it's a fantastic question that connects well to the workbooks as well. So then once you log in, gone through all of this stuff that you can do with creating your class. What you can also do is you can download your workbook there, or go to the workbook page, or you can use a shortcut up here. Now, what the workbooks look like, and I'm about to move over to them, they're broken up the same as the game levels were in the class that you created. So if you're looking to use the workbook with the Easy Money version of the game, like the standard access version of the game, there's a teacher support document and a student workbook there. And then if you're looking for the more advanced version, again, it's very clearly separated out. It's very clearly articulated on that Easy Money workbook page. And then once you've downloaded those, they're in a Word document format. That is something I fought long and hard for internally, because I wanted it to be something that was usable for teachers, usable for students, and that you could edit and personalize to your own local context. And also because that I'm just doing the standard one here for the student workbook. Like, anyone who's got really good eyes will see that this thing is 125 pages. That is going to be too much for a lot of you and a lot of your students. And you're going to look at this and go, and I'm just skipping over the instructions and summary stuff that's in here to get to the core elements of how it's laid out. Some of you might really want your students to have this as a logbook, so they can go back and see each week, like the key decisions they're making. They can see their progress through with how their assets grew, how their liabilities either increased or decreased. And you might have a focus around utilizing that logging style and getting students to be able to look back through the different things that they've learned throughout the use of the game. And that might be really core to what you want to do with your students. It was a core part of the original version of the workbook. Or you might not want that at all, and you might want to strip out a lot of the logging functions and just get your students to focus in on just core decision questions. Or you might want to go through, and I'm just skimming down fairly quickly because you can download these workbooks and look at them in far more detail than what I'll be able to cover in 30 minutes. But you might want to get down to and just get them to actually put in there and transcribe or copy and paste out of the game. What did they put in for their reflection questions? That might be your focus. And you could just strip out probably 60 pages of this workbook if you don't want the logging and the record keeping side of it. That's there for you to be able to personalize as you see fit. Answering the question in chat, which was, can we provide a class of students 2 links, one for Easy Money Plus and one for Easy Money, depending on how much they wish to be challenged? The answer to that is absolutely yes. So when I'm coming back from the workbooks to the game page here. So you can create as many of these links, and you can see I've got a ton because this is my teacher account, my testing account. This is the main one I use for everything I do in teaching and learning space. You can make as many of these as you like of whatever versions. What I tended to find worked the best for me, and what most teachers tend to do, is unless they know they definitely want to go straight into Plus with their students, which is fairly common in grades 10 to 12, like it does really lend itself to that older age group, and that generally overall a little bit more mature and experienced way of thinking. But if you don't know which one to do, it's a really good idea to just start with Easy Money, play it through, and if the kids are really smashing through it, or some of your students are, create that Easy Money Plus link and give that to them. And you can do as many of these as you like. And one teacher tip I'd give you, and it's in the video, is if you've got gamers in your class, and chances are you've got gamers in your class, make a homework version of the link, whether it's Easy Money or Easy Money Plus. Give them that so they can play it at home, so they don't come back into your class having played through all 5 of their playthroughs between lessons, because I guarantee you, you will get students who will take the link home and they will go and play through all of those games. But coming back to the workbook, so what anyone who's got like really fast eyes as I was scrolling through here, what you'll notice is that those things I talked about of like real world connection and research tasks and more deeper critical thinking tasks, they don't lend themselves to the way the basic version of the Easy Money game works with students. So you'll notice when you look at the game and then you look at the workbook, you'll pick up really quickly which version is going to be the one you want to use with your students. And for those of you who might be teaching out of area and be non-specialists, or feeling a little bit hesitant about taking on a new technical resource, there is that really comprehensive teacher guide. There's a really comprehensive learner guide that I know a lot of schools potentially block YouTube, but that you as a teacher would be able to play for your students if you would like to do that. Students often find it themselves between lessons as well, because they go looking for how to make the most money on the game. But there's also a teacher support resource that details like the information on where to find the curriculum mapping in the Easy Money portal, which I've got open. I'll actually be finishing close to the session off with the mapping. It tells you about some other resources that connect to the game, but it also tells you what the answers to the questions are that only have one answer. So this would be a really handy thing for you to have a copy of yourself if you're in the classroom and you're not super confident or potentially feeling comfortable about answering some of the students' questions. For both versions of the game, if there's like only one answer the students can put in, we have provided you an answer or a sample response to that so that you can quickly and easily address that with the students without getting stuck. That's the Easy Money Standard, just the normal version of the game. And then there's the Easy Money Plus. And you'll notice, again, for eagle eyes, Easy Money Standard's currently in that Word format, which is quite spacious to enable students to type their responses in, or if you want to print it and have them write it, there's space there for them to do that. But the Plus version blows out to 189 pages. And the reason for that is that it has, in addition to the same sort of record keeping stuff that, again, a lot of people have requested of us, it was one of the most popular features for some teachers in the original version. So we've kept that in. But you're seeing a lot of similarities here, but there's a few extra apps coming through. The bank accounts are different in Easy Money Standard and Plus. So the interests and fees and charges and benefits and negatives of each of those accounts are different in there. I'm scrolling down though, because this is where we have points of difference. So what we've also added into Easy Money Plus is we've added to, first off, what students are learning about in the game, with a little bit of jump out to the real world. So getting them to actually consolidate what they have covered in that week of the simulation. So that's been added in because they have that more detailed information in Plus. You can also bring these in between the workbooks. Like you'll be able to have them, and I'm sure there's going to be modified versions. I know there already are floating around. Do with it what you need to do for your students in your particular context. But in addition to that, so like building on getting students to actually look at what they learned in the game that week, as in not the week of your classes, but the game week that they played through, because that's how the game's broken up in the simulation. And the same reflective diary questions that are different in each version of the game. There's also, marked with the little Wi-Fi symbol, there's also these jump out into the real world questions. And you'll see that there's little things there from Hal, who guides them through the game to whether they read it or not, but instructing the students to check with you whether they're meant to do the investigation. You could easily get rid of these if you don't want to do the investigations and strip them out. Like, you've got this as an editable resource that you can play with. Robin, I do see your question. I'll finish with this little section on the workbook and I'll circle back to the game question as well. So what this gets the students to do is actually move what they're learning in the simulation and put it into the real world. So where they had to do a really simplistic comparison of transactions accounts and savings accounts in the game, the real world is way more overwhelming in terms of the things that they can look at and where to go to find that information and how they go about opening a bank account than literally look at the couple of options, make the best choice, open the account, hit a button, you don't have to actually jump through the real world hoops. This takes students a bit more into that next real world step and gets them ready to actually do this if it is something they need or want to do, to get a bank account, to open it up, to have that ready, to have different types of accounts, to see the real world application of, oh, you can earn money on your money by just having it in the bank in high interest savings. Does that same thing apply in the real world? Yep. And how does that happen? So we get them to go and look at those and look at the information and make a decision on what are the ones that they think are best for them. Doesn't make them do anything with that. Like, we're not trying to force students into creating accounts, but we're looking to set them up with those skills and knowledge and capabilities, not just leaving it in the game. And that's what the workbooks are for. And that's why the plus version is that more comprehensive set of what they're being asked to do. And then, like, so same thing with the pay slips. They get asked a few more comprehensive questions about what happens in the game with the pay slips. It gets them to go and look at, like, a little light version of looking for a job. What's the sort of information you might be able to find? What jobs are available near you or in the nearest city? Because in rural and remote and regional areas, there might not be a lot of stuff available on resources such as Seek, but we want students to have that experience of, how would I actually go on and take this into the real world instead of the safe little bubble that I'm operating in the game. And then I just want to do one more thing with the workbooks that's a commonality between both of them, because I said there's a lot in there that you will be able to really sink your teeth into and investigate, like what's going to work for your students, what's not, what do you want to cover, what do you not. But the thing that I think is the most important and was the most critical thing that I used to do with students in the classroom is actually getting them to sit down and do the end of game review and look back at how did they play that game, not just from a superficial level of what do you remember in terms of the mistakes you made before you quickly go and start the next one, or what do you remember of the things that you did right, but actually getting them to really evaluate what they did and then go and apply that into another version of the game. So when I had an extended like block that I could put this in with my curriculum, I would actually get students absolutely hooked on this topic by getting them to just play a game through. Then I would introduce the workbook for their second playthrough, and then I would get them to do a third playthrough. If I was really stuck for time, I'd get them to do the workbook at the end of the first playthrough, but I'd always want them to play a second time to take those learnings, have it as a reference point in the workbook that they'd been through, and then actually play the game without recompleting the workbook, but actually using what they learned and applying it. And that's where I saw like these really big jumps in their net position, because they were taking what they'd learned, not just the things and bits and pieces they remembered. And through that iterative playthrough, they were then able to apply those decisions, which is the skills we want them to have. So that'd be a really core one that I'd suggest. Please do give a lot of thought to it before you strip that one out, because I've seen firsthand the benefit that this has when you have students working through and playing the game, thinking about what they've done, looking at the actions and decisions they've taken, looking at what they did right and wrong, actually getting them to go back through and see what they did and how they did it, and where they got caught out by scams, and whether they could have been more efficient in the career choices they made if they had an end goal, like did they leave it too late, or get a bit comfortable in the job they were in if they were really aiming for that highest pay point at the end of the game. And do keep in mind, like, take with a grain of salt the simulation, because we understand that an 18-year-old in 26 weeks isn't going to hit some of the positions that they can achieve in this game, but it does put them in that headspace of controlling all their own finances, managing all their own finances, having the chance of success, having the chance to make mistakes, having the ability to go bankrupt if they really just max out every credit card they can get their hands on and don't get a job, or don't get a job that pays them enough to actually meet the minimum repayments, see that interest compounding, see those expenses adding up. Like, there's so many real world aspects that you can explore with the game, and that lends itself to other learning that you want to cover. So coming back to the question on the game, when you send students the game link, do they just log in and start playing? Will you see the names on the teacher dashboard? Exactly where I wanted to jump into next. So in the game, once you give students the game link, they can go and start playing. That's 100% correct. Once they go past week 1, within about 20 or 30 minutes, their name will appear on this leaderboard. These are teachers I've got permission to be using on my leaderboard for this and other conferences this year. So this is in your teacher dashboard. This is the teacher dashboard for each of your classes. Your classes don't mix together, so they're not going to see each other. If you do want to get really into this, what I used to do as a year 9 coordinator is I actually had all of the pastoral care classes playing Easy Money, and I would I managed all the classes. I gave the teachers the link, the teachers shared them with the students. And simply because I wanted to be able to download the reports and send out like weekly or fortnightly updates in a spreadsheet format of how the classes were going and what our interclass competition looked like, which really fostered a whole new level of competition in between the year levels, not just my current classes. But in terms of your class, you absolutely will have the leaderboard, but it doesn't refresh live because it costs way too much in server hosting to have it run live. So it will go every 20 minutes to 90 minutes, depending on how many people are playing the game nationally, what the server load is. So my suggestion would be if you're going to use it, just use it as like a beginning or end of class activity. And then if you're doing it over a couple of lessons, load the leaderboard up at the start of the next lesson, and don't get into the habit of students finishing a week and then trying to pester you to refresh the leaderboard, because it won't happen. It doesn't work that fast. But that's where you'll see the names, and you can actually go and dig into all the decisions they've made. You can see their diary entries, which is what I used to do because I originally had a thing of trying to get students to give me their diary entries, but they would inevitably forget or mess up or be away or be overseas or be sick or whatever it might be. So I could just go in and get them out of the individual students, and I could see what their quiz responses, etc., were as well, and what they did, when they were playing the game. So you can see everything about your students in there as well. Yep. Oh, the other question was, is an end of term activity, can they play the game and not do the workbook? Absolutely. The game's been running for the last, I think it's about 7 years without the workbook being published. The workbook's only just been published this year for version 2 of the game. So the two are independent of each other. The way the workbooks are designed is to be a value add. It's to give you like some teacher support resources, again, with answers to the questions. For the plus version, just to show you those are in there as well. But it's to give you a value add on something that you might want to add to with your classes, or you might simply just be looking for some ideas on some different reflective questions or different things that you might want to get the students to do as an investigation or an activity. And you might literally go through this whole thing and just grab 2 elements out of it. Or you might jump off to one of our other resources if you're away and get the students to go and complete a web quest or play the game or whatever it might be that you want to do with them. There is a whole range of stuff in here that you can, I was just looking for another investigation, that you can kind of pick through and decide what is it that you want to do with this information. And here's another one about financial well-being. So I know we've hit the end of our 30 minutes, but if you want to stay, I can see there's some more questions coming in and I'm happy to answer those as long as people are asking them. Great question about challenge. I've actually got that up. So for those of you who are Easy Money Challenge users, the Easy Money Challenge is going to be back in 2027. If you weren't familiar with it, it's a version of Easy Money that has cash prizes attached. What we're actually going to be doing in 2027 that we're getting ready for in the back end, the challenge name is on hold because we're trying a different version of the competition. So challenge was a version of Easy Money that ran for 2 weeks. The game without prizes runs all year, but we ran a 2-week competition every year nationally and had national and state prizes. In 2027, we're going to do what's going to be called Easy Money Champions, and it's actually going to run almost the entirety of the year. So it'll be the same sort of leaderboard. It'll be state and national prizes. We won't be showing student names because we're looking for a more streamlined approach to this. So we won't publish student names. We'll only reach out to the winners for a media release. For those of you who's challenged before, you'd know that there was a few extra steps to do challenge that we're looking to take away, including permission to use the student's first name. You'll still know who your students are when you see the leaderboard. It'll be really clear. You'll still see your school there. The students will know who they are, but we won't be publishing their names so that we can really cut down on only getting like minimum essential details on what we need to run the competition. But yes, it's still going to be cash prizes. It will be running through the plan is the entirety of 2027. There is technical stuff happening in the back end that I'm waiting on devs for, but that's what we're looking at in that initiative. We've got updated terms and conditions and processes happening, but it won't be a separate version of the game. It's going to pull from the existing game data, but I'll have more info on that when we launch the Champions Initiative at the start of 2027. The next question was, when you suggest give students a homework version so they don't finish the game in 1 week, did you mean they'll be playing a separate game for homework? Yeah, so what that essentially means is that I would make literally a version of, like, if I was putting in my, a class code, actually, what are we in, semester 2, so it'll be 092. But if I was doing this, I would make it the homework version, and I would give that link to students when it appears down here, as if you want to play this at home, go and play and send them, or publish it on your OneNote or whatever your school uses, that link for them to play at home. It will mean that you'll have a homework leaderboard and a class leaderboard, but it means they won't be blasting through their in-class games, making you kind of have to scramble and make a new link during the lesson. So if there's any more questions, please feel free. I would also like to say thank you very much, everyone. We understand that doing it at these sorts of times can be tricky, but we have also found that this middle of the day actually tends to catch us more teachers. We've tried evenings, we've tried afternoons, and this sort of time period lends itself across the time zones nationally, and say middle of the day on the East Coast, but it's also mid-morning on the West Coast. So I do appreciate those of you who've been able to come in live. If you do have any further questions, you will definitely have my info and my contact details on the email that comes out at the end of this, informing you that the recording is available. Please do keep a hold of those and take those details down, because if you've got an education question, just reach out to me direct. It'll save you reaching out through the help desk person sending it on to me, because that's where the education questions come. It'll just mean you can reach out to me direct, including if you get really stuck and you're in the classroom and you need to call me. I do that, I would say 2 or 3 times a week. I'm talking to a teacher who just wants a little bit of help in the classroom. I just saw the question about how do I distribute the game link. So all you literally need to do is copy this URL. So you can either copy it there, or you can open up that link and you can copy the URL at the top. Then it's really up to you how you go about distributing it on your school systems. I used to use OneNote. That's what Education Queensland had given us access to as a cloud version that I could share and give permissions to all my students. I used to do it that way. Before OneNote came in, I was using our shared drive, and I just literally had a folder organized and a file in there that students could go to and get the link. It's really whatever the tech is at your school, but all you have to do is make sure you give them that link and not the link after you log in. Because once you log in, it takes you to a different URL to play the game. So it's just literally copy that one, and don't give them the teacher dashboard link, because it would let them go and see what their friends are doing, and they can't change any info, but they could see potentially what people are doing and try and copy strategies instead of actually reflecting and learning themselves. And they might be trying to find like a most efficient approach, as opposed to taking those lessons and building that knowledge and capability. I will just give it another minute, just in case there are other questions that come in. I'll leave the screen share active just in case someone else wants me to show anything. But again, I really encourage you, if you're looking at this resource, at least, even if you don't play the game all the way through, start up a game, just look at the YouTube video for the 30-second instruction on how to make a student account, because it is its own like private game server. We've got a whole ton of protections for student data protection and privacy, and teacher data protection and privacy in place. So you can create a student account. It's separate to your login on our website. So you can be a young person. You can put in a year of birth that puts you in high school. Please don't put your own year of birth, because you'll get a message in there that very politely tells you in the nicest possible way that you're too old. I think it says you're out of range. So just pick a year that puts you in high school, like 2011. But there is a whole range of those more detailed questions on the YouTube guides, and also in the Educator Hub. If you look in Easy Money under the Easy Money Help Desk, there's actually links to the frequently asked questions, a bit of technical support, and the video guides. I'd really strongly suggest have that handy as well. But in all honesty, your students will take to this and fly through it with a faster level of comfort than you probably will. And that's what we tend to find with it, what I found with it. But once you've gone through it once yourself, you'll start to pick the sort of things that they might come up with and come out with. And be prepared. They're probably going to bring out a few things and have some really organic teaching and learning moments, which is my favorite part of the Easy Money game. But I'll save too much more info on that to an actual webinar about Easy Money that we'll be doing next term. I'll be doing a recap of the actual game itself. The main thing here is just let you know that the workbook is back. It's been the most requested document and feature since I came on board with FBF, including from me. You've got it there. We'll continue updating it and tweaking it. So, check in semi-regularly, maybe even just at the start of each year, because we'll be reviewing it at the very least each December. But we also do as links change and things change and resources change, and we might have to update URLs and dead links. You can download it as often as you want, whenever you would like, but it's definitely going to get reviewed each December. So I'd encourage you, at the very least, just grab the next version of the workbook when the new school year rolls around. But it's been a little bit since we've hit any further questions, so I will stop sharing my screen. And I'll just finish up with, reach out to me, please, directly if you have any further questions. I'll be happy to answer them for you, or if you'd like to make a time where I can sit down over Teams or Zoom or whatever your school uses with you or your department or anyone else who wants to go through this stuff. It's part of what I do day to day, so I'm more than happy to be flexible and work out a time where I can get in touch, I can answer your questions, and we could potentially look at how these resources, and haven't even touched on all the other free resources we've got sitting up in here, and the short courses and things we've got both published and in the works. There's a whole range of stuff there for you to explore. I'm more than happy to help with your school and your local context and help you fit that in and your curriculum, because I know every state and territory, apart from a couple, have their own version of the Australian curriculum and how they're implementing that. So if you would like to take that up, please just let me know. I thank you for the lovely messages in chat. Thank you for everyone who is here either in the recording or live. From a personal Damien side of things, not just FBF, but we really do appreciate, and I really do appreciate what you're doing with helping the financial literacy and capability of young people and young Australians. We know, and I would love if every parent and every student was getting an equal opportunity to learn this stuff at home, but we know that's not the reality. I wish it didn't fall on teachers, but the unfortunate thing is that this is the place that most students are going to have the chance to learn this, if they are going to learn it at all, is at school and is in the classroom. And even if you're out of your comfort area and out of your teaching area, I appreciate that you're here doing this, and hopefully can find some value in our resources. We design everything for a non-specialist teacher to be able to follow the bouncing ball and help their students, because we know not everyone's a specialist. And if you are a specialist, hopefully you can tweak and, write our resources to the optimal outcome for your students. All right, thanks everyone. We'll wrap up there. Please reach out. I'll pass along those kind words to the rest of the team as well. I'll put my email address in chat, but it'll also be with the recording. And all those emails you've received about the webinar as well. Excellent. Thank you very much. And if you need any help making a go of it next term, Julian, please do let me know. I keep turning my head because that's where my chat window is. Thanks, everybody. I look forward to hearing from those of you that might like some further help or assistance or questions answered, or a little bit more of a detailed non-rush breakdown. I'll be more than happy to answer those.